Good morning, good morning. I don't know what it's like with you. It has just started raining with me after this lovely weather that we've had for a while, but we'll not let that rain on our parade today. I'm delighted once again to join you on the Future Skills program. And today I'm going to share a little bit around communication tips for success at work. So if many of you are perhaps leaving university or moving on to something new, how you really can find your voice and be the best that you can be. I am one half of Bespoke Communications. Many of you might know my business partner as well, Camilla there on the left-hand side, Camilla Long. She spent some time at Ulster University as well. Camilla is a computer scientist and I am, as Shauna said, a journalist primarily for BBC Northern Ireland. I'm very, very old. It makes me feel really old whenever you hear that introduction. But we joined forces at the start of 2014 and we have a great relationship with Ulster University, really supportive of all the great work that you're doing there. So that's a little bit about my background. What I'm hoping that you will take away from your session today is a little bit about yes, it's about communication skills, but to be a great communicator, we have to start with liking ourselves and how we communicate. So a lot of that is around identifying perhaps your inner critic, overcoming any imposter syndrome you feel when it comes to communicating and maybe meetings and presentations. We look at how you can develop your confidence in meetings. I'll share a structure with you to help you deliver brilliant presentations once you've challenged all of those demons that are holding you back. And as Shauna said too, we'll also look at how you can find your voice when you see a better way to do things, but you don't quite know how to raise it or be heard. So really we're looking at how you can make your own very unique and individual mark. What I would love to do at the start is share with you a little bit about my background. Now, that is not me. That is Katy Perry. I was never Katy Perry. But when it comes to performing, and I was a news anchor for 13 years in total. I had my own live television show then on UTV for 2 years. I regularly host live events. And every single time, even today, the old inner critic, the little voice in my head, will chip away at my confidence and make me think, oh gosh, I don't know whether I can bring it today. So one of the things that I've learned to help me turn up, show up, be switched on, be that shinier version of myself is what they do at big events when I'm hosting award ceremonies or events. The guys on the audio desk always play a walk-on song. Okay, so it's like that first song that would get you on the dance floor. It's that fight song that you see the boxers coming into. It's something to psych yourself up with. So, a bit of Katy Perry roar or firework is always something that can kind of get the blood start pumping, and you really need that adrenaline that you feel when you're feeling anxious before a big communication event. You need to feel that, and then you use that energy that you get from that to put on a good performance. So I'm wondering, before we begin, if you wanted to share in the chat function today, what would your what would your walk-on song? Pop it in the chat function. Let us know what would really make you feel great, like the best version of yourself. And then we're going to hold on to that feeling for the rest of the session. So let's talk a little bit about imposter syndrome. I can tell you that when it comes to imposter syndrome, I have definitely got the t-shirt. Now, if I look back over the years, so the photograph on the right-hand side, that was probably one of my earliest bulletins. So I left my degree, broadcast journalism at Nottingham Trent University, came back and started to work in Radio Foyle in Derry, which I absolutely loved and found really small and friendly and welcoming. And then I progressed to the Belfast newsroom, which at that time, it was probably 1997. So we were kind of building up to the peace process. No Good Friday Agreement at that stage. So the Troubles were still very much part and parcel of life. And you had journalists from all over the world covering the story that was unfolding in Belfast, in Northern Ireland. So the newsroom, as you could see, had a little booth where we broadcast bulletins from, and you can see how busy it is in the background. There was always this buzz, and you would have all the main players, politicians, regularly walking past that. But I know, and I probably look, super confident, quite young, as I said, probably about 22, 23 years old. But I know that deep down I am quaking inside, because I really felt like, do they really know that I'm maybe not as good as they think I am? So I always had that from day one. And I don't think that ever leaves you. So for anybody out there that is about to embark on a new chapter of their lives and going into something new where you feel really out of your depth and, do you deserve to be there? Are you as good as everybody else? Park that thought right now and say, I've got to start somewhere. I may be the new person, but I'm going to embrace it. I'm going to ask as many questions as possible. I'm going to learn as much as possible. And, if people are expecting too much from me early on, I'm going to explain to them that, I've just started, give me a break. The other photograph on the left-hand side, that's probably about 13 years later. I look very manicured there in that photograph, don't I? They'd really got the old presenter bob going on there well in the highlights. But I had learned to challenge that inner critic and that imposter syndrome, and I'd learned to silence it. And I'm hoping that I can share how I did that with you as we go through the morning. Maria Curran would have Beautiful Day by U2 as her song that would get her up onto the stage, would make her feel good. That's a really good choice, Maria. I totally agree with you. There's something about music when you're feeling stressed or you're feeling anxious that suddenly taps into something else. So thank you for sharing that with us. So what is imposter syndrome anyway? Well, according to the dictionary, it is the persistent inability to believe one's success is deserved or has been legitimately achieved as a result of one's own efforts or skills. So the thing is, and what you really should realize is that 80% of all people experience imposter syndrome at some time in their lives. Mightn't be there all the time, but, it's pretty universal. And I think if we all started admitting that and saying perhaps we're a little bit out of our depth, the world would be a much friendlier place, don't you think? So signs that you might be experiencing it, maybe if you recognize any of these signs, it might be an idea to see what you can do about it. The signs might be you're constantly comparing yourself to others. You are afraid of failure. You feel the need to do everything yourself and rarely ask for help. So perhaps not the signs you would really think of that you had imposter syndrome. But if any of these are speaking to you now, then you could have a classic case of imposter syndrome. However, from this session today, you can change how you think about yourself because, as Carl Jung said, and this is one of my favorite quotes of all time, I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. And choose is the word that I want you to think about. Choice is everything. And so much of what we think we're not capable of comes down to ourselves and our own lacking in self-belief. So you can choose to think differently about that. Shauna's just said she really likes this statement. I love this statement, Shauna. Honestly, you should have that up next to you wherever you sit and spend most of your time. And when you find yourself spiraling or reacting in a way that's not helpful, and we'll explore some of those unhelpful thinking styles shortly, go back to this one. It's all about choice and choosing to think differently. That is, ladies and gentlemen, the growth mindset. That is telling yourself that you're going to move from a fixed mindset, which we've all nearly been born with. We've inherited all sorts of biases, sets of beliefs, values from the way that we were brought up, and we think we're a certain way, and that's just that. Well, it's not. Because if you adopt a growth mindset, you will see the world in a very different place. You will always see challenges in a very different way. So you would change from seeing a challenge as a threat to an opportunity. And just to really hone in on that a bit, a fixed mindset. So somebody who's in a fixed mindset would avoid a challenge, would feel that you had to be born with a talent. You would feel that if you failed, it would be proof of unintelligence. You would be threatened by the success of others. Very toxic place to be. And you could have a why should I bother attitude. If you tell yourself today to choose to think differently, the growth mindset person would embrace challenge, believes that talent can be developed, views failure as a chance to grow. So learn from it. Knows that effort leads to success. Lots of people think, well, why should I bother? Because if I put all that work in and it doesn't go well, then I've wasted my time. That's such an unhealthy way to think. Actually, keeping going, and especially when it comes to presentation skills, you're not going to get up there and be brilliant first time. You're going to have to work at it. It's going to take practice, and you're going to learn from everything that perhaps didn't go so well so that you can improve your performance for the next time. So a growth mindset would also feel very inspired by the success of others and want to keep improving. So that's where we're going to start with developing our growth mindset. And to do that, we have to start dealing with facts versus interpretation. So what do I mean by that? So when we see a threatening environment, like we have to chair a meeting and we're not long into our new job and we're feeling the imposter syndrome, the facts here are, well, you haven't done this before, so give yourself a break. You're going to prepare. So if you prepare well, or you perhaps ask somebody, what's the best way that I could go around about doing this? Or perhaps you've watched somebody else in advance. You've seen maybe how to do it in a straightforward and simple way. Once you've looked at those facts, you might think, well, do you know what? I'll give it a go. Versus interpretation. Well, I don't know how to do this, therefore I'm going to be rubbish, and therefore everybody's going to think really badly of me. And do you see what happens? You start spiraling out of control. So let's take the emotion, let's take the interpretation, let's take that gut feeling that you've got about a threatening or challenging situation and just stick with the facts, and let's stick with what we know going forward. Two massive threats to you ever being able to overcome imposter syndrome, to allow yourself to become a great communicator. One, your inner critic that I spoke about. That's where you have negative thoughts about yourself. Perhaps you do the self-sabotage thing. The voice in your head tells you you're no good, you're rubbish. Or perhaps you hear somebody from another part of your life in your upbringing that maybe put you down, or you felt humiliated or shame or judged by somebody, and that's scarred you and you're still carrying that. So that inner critic can be somebody else, or it can very often be you yourself. So that's one thing we have to be really careful of. The other is the danger of perfectionism. So how many of you out there are perfectionists, do you think? Because actually, perfectionism, according to Brené Brown, and I would really urge you to tune in to anything that Brené does. She talks about the power of vulnerability. She's done brilliant TED Talks. She has her Dare to Lead podcast with super insights and great sharing from great communicators on how all about the danger of perfectionism. Because if you're striving to be perfect all the time, it's actually a self-destructive, addictive belief system that fuels this primary thought. If I look perfect, if I do everything perfectly, I can avoid or minimize the painful feelings of shame, judgment, and blame. Have we ever thought about it like that before? It's actually quite selfish. Let's go back to thinking, let's give it a go and stop worrying what other people think. Just be yourself. Try and get back to when you were that little 3-year-old, 4-year-old child and you had no inhibitions. That's where we really need to get people back to. As Brené Brown says, when perfectionism is driving us, shame is riding shotgun, and fear is that annoying backseat driver. So when it comes to being a public speaker, when it comes to working in television and live shows, if we think we've got to be the very best all of the time, we're going to fail. We're setting ourselves up for failure. And actually, it's only because we're fearing humiliation, which can be really painful and hurtful. Granted, my goodness, especially when you're on live TV at the minute and social media is around. But if you can free yourself from that, the world is your oyster. There's a great TED Talk online by this guy, Steve Chapman, on your inner critic and identifying your inner critic. And I'm going to play a couple of minutes of the opening of a TED Talk that Steve gave in Tunbridge Wells some years ago, where he is talking about his inner critic. Let's see if you can relate to this.
Terribly sorry to interrupt your day, but I feel the need to warn you about the next speaker, who doesn't deserve to be here. I can only assume the organisers made a clerical error and thought they were booking a different Steve Chapman, one with intellect and wisdom, a true thought leader. This Steve Chapman is a compliant enough human being, but is punching way above his weight by even considering walking onto this stage. I have been telling him for many years that he has ideas way above his station that are only going to lead to his spectacular public humiliation. I fear that moment is about to come, and I will take no pleasure in telling him, I told you so. I can only apologise on his behalf and suggest you use the next short while to check your emails until the next proper speaker arrives.
So, I wonder, can you relate to that feeling? That's what Steve feels. That's actually what an awful lot of other people feel when it comes to taking the stage, thinking everybody else is going to be better than me. How come I was invited to do this today? Really, they're going to be, I should apologize. I should really apologize for being born before I begin this talk. So, we've really got to move away from that and know that so many people feel exactly the same way. Just be yourself. But a shinier version of yourself, and watch the language that you use. So drop any apologies, drop the should, would, must, just, those kind of things, and own your space. It takes practice because, of course, nobody wants an arrogant ego on the stage either. They want somebody they see who has courage to get up there, but also a little bit of compassion too. Those go very well hand in hand on stage. This is what we have to hold on to. A brilliant quote by Maya Angelou. So if we think, what is success? How are we going to be successful in our future lives, in our future jobs, in our future careers? So much pressure now to be brilliant. Everything's measured in things and what you have. But actually, Maya sums it up so well. Success is liking yourself, liking what you do, and liking how you do it. There's another quote to take with you through your life, because if we can be kind to ourselves, give ourselves a break, and actually say, I'm doing okay, then you will feel much more empowered to chair meetings, to give a keynote address, to appear in a panel discussion, to find your voice and like your voice. But what this requires is a little bit of self-awareness now. So we're going to be just delving a little deeper in this very short session this morning to see how much do we really know about our default reactions to challenging communication situations. We're going to look a little bit at unhelpful thinking styles that you may have, and some of them you might be very aware of, others they've been completely unconscious, perhaps until this point today. Because as Einstein said, the world we have created is a product of our thinking. It cannot be changed without changing our thinking. So again, choice, choosing to change. So let's just throw out a couple of unhelpful thinking styles, and I wonder if you can identify with any of these. I've put up 4 of them up there. Who's a catastrophizer out there? Who thinks that, 99% of everything went well, 1% wasn't so good, so the whole thing is a disaster? So if that's you, I'm very guilty of that myself, or I have been in the past until I chose to think differently. Just because I say a word wrong, just because I can't remember the word, just because the slide didn't move on quickly as it didn't a second ago, who cares? It's all right. Apply the nobody died test to it, and then you'll get things into perspective. What about fear of rejection or fear of criticism? Again, that's all tied into that perfectionist thing. So I don't want to feel that somebody didn't think I was good enough. So we've got to identify that, and that seems to plague a lot of people. But again, we can't keep worrying about that. Chances are somebody's not even giving you a second thought. What about the minimizing the positives? So you've had a bad day, something didn't quite go so well, and somebody that you really love, maybe a friend, maybe a flatmate, maybe your mum has said to you, oh, don't worry, you're great, I think you're fantastic. And you think, oh, for goodness sake, you would say that, wouldn't you? And yet you keep thinking about these other people and all the things that they might be saying that, again, interpretation. We don't have any facts in that situation. Or what about the nothing good ever happens to me? Very dangerous mindset to be in. The overgeneralizing, when overly broad language is used to evaluate events or people, when you use words like always, never, ever, everybody doesn't, for the way kids do, nobody played with me at school today. Those kind of things are they true? Or are they an interpretation? What about the jumping to conclusions, making assumptions rather than basing your thoughts on the facts again? So I haven't heard back from that person, so therefore they mustn't like me. This is all really unhelpful. What about labeling? Telling yourself you're stupid because something hasn't gone well, or you didn't get the job, or you made one small mistake, and you start the self-sabotage. Again, really unhelpful. The personalization, thinking that everything must be your fault. Oh gosh, everything that's happened in the world today, I must have done something wrong. Not good. So those are some things to start thinking about today. If you can identify with any of them, then please let me know. If a light bulb has gone off for you today and you think, oh my goodness, I have never realized that is totally me. That is me spiraling down the rabbit hole when something bad goes wrong. So identify those and then start growth mindset. Choose to think differently about it. I'm just seeing a little bit of chat in the box here. A wise man once told me that those sitting in front of you have chosen to be there and want to hear what you have to say. So don't worry that they're not interested. Absolutely true. We can be standing up there. People can be on their phones in front of you. They could be writing an email, or they could actually be taking notes and listening very thoroughly to what you're saying. And they're in resting mode as well. So they're not going to be necessarily sitting up and smiling back at you and nodding all the time. Although in an audience, in a real audience, you'll always get one or two of those people, and they are the best audience members. And I would urge you all to be better audience members. We don't arrive there thinking, actually, that person's going to be rubbish, or I wonder, are they feeling really nervous right now? We don't think that. We're like, oh, I'm keen to see what this person has to say. So, stop thinking that they're going to hate you. As that very wise person has just told us there, they're not thinking that at all. Stop speculating. These are all negative thoughts and self-limiting beliefs. All of these things will really weigh you down. And as a communicator, if you get into that negative mindset, honestly, you're right. You won't communicate effectively. You won't enjoy what you're doing. You won't like yourself, and therefore the whole thing will not be good to listen to. People like to see enthusiastic, energetic people. They do. That's the way we're hardwired. So how do we move away from these negative thoughts and self-limiting beliefs, the catastrophizers, the people who fear rejection? We move to the growth mindset and the I can mentality. Confidence is a skill that can be learned when it comes to confident public speaking. You see, confidence is actually unique to you. It's individual, and it doesn't necessarily mean that every single person feels the same in every situation. Very few people love public speaking. That's the reality. It's actually one of those things that people dread. But if I was to throw a few things out to you right now, it might just explain to you a little bit more that no one is confident all the time. Confidence is personal to us. So let's just see, what does it mean to you? If, for example, you had an interview coming up for a job, how confident do you feel for that interview? So some will say, yeah, great. Some will say, no, not great. And some will say, definitely, I'm dreading this, absolutely dreading that. You got the job. Congratulations. Fantastic. Wonderful. Now you need to negotiate your pay. This might be something some of you have never even considered, but this is so important when it comes to the world of work. Knowing your worth, knowing your value, knowing when it's the right time to ask to talk about pay, but especially in your first job. And anybody who's a bit further along the road will agree with me when I say you've got to get in there first of all and get that good negotiation first time, because it takes a while for that pay rise to come about after that. So you want to negotiate your pay? How confident do you feel right now? So again, there'll be some going, yeah, I can do that. Others, middle, some not at all. You've been asked to deliver a keynote speech to about 200 people. How do you feel? Yeah. So again, a lot of people will think, oh, seriously? However, if you find out that there were key influential people at the event you were giving the speech to, does that change your confidence levels? Or if I told you and you'd more information, the topic was something that you knew really, really well, you loved speaking about, and most of the audience you knew and you'd worked with before, does that change your confidence levels? Now, there'll be some people listening to me today will go, oh yeah, the second one, I love the thought of that. Then others would go, oh no, I hate speaking in front of people I know. I'd much rather be a stranger in front of strangers. So again, confidence is unique to us as individuals. You've been asked to do a bungee jump for children in need. How do you feel about that? I can tell you, I would never do that, but there'll be others going, yeah, bring it on. Do you see the ones that say, bring it on? You need to channel that energy that you would give to a bungee jump to the same feeling that you need before you give a speech or you're chairing a meeting or anything like that. Energy, energy, energy. So a little bit of an example there of how confidence affects us all differently and is personal to us. Maybe you need to start identifying why you feel the imposter syndrome. Maybe it's time to actually, for the first time, think, why do I feel like this? And this sentence and this exercise, you might write this sentence down and think about this after the session today. I sometimes feel like an imposter because a lot of people have never really thought about this or said this out loud. My teacher once said I would never go to university. I hate public speaking. I failed my transfer test. Those kind of things, when they happen to us, can really affect our confidence going forward. And many of you will have immediately jumped to a particular scenario, a particular voice, a particular feeling of humiliation, which makes us less likely sometimes to put ourselves out there because we don't want to ever experience that hurt again. There are others, though, that are completely inspired, like feel fire in their belly because of that. It is like, I will never feel that again, and I will take on every challenge that comes my way. But if you could think about that today, you could perhaps identify what it is that's actually holding you back. So stop. What is the evidence? Yes, that may have happened a long period of time ago, but today I'm going to park that and I'm going to move on and I'm going to choose to think differently and grow my confidence back to the growth mindset. So in fact, all of those negative thoughts and limiting beliefs, if we reframe how we see the challenging situation that you don't want to do again because it went badly the last time or scarred you for life, actually, where have those beliefs come from? What is the cost to you of continuing to think like this? What are the benefits? Presumably none. And how different would life be if you didn't feel that way anymore? So we need to reframe. We need to stop interpreting what we hear and we need to deal with facts. If somebody says to you, you're not fully qualified for the job, they don't mean, seriously? Why did you apply? You'll never get anywhere with your sad life. They didn't say that. You meet somebody you thought you'd got on well, and they said, I've got a partner already. What they didn't say to you was, oh, the thought of being touched by you brings on nausea. They didn't. When they say no, they don't mean I despise you. So again, where are the catastrophizers out there? Where are we going to when we spiral and we hear something and we interpret it in a different way? So back to the confidence that you need to communicate effectively. If you think about, we've already talked about Katy Perry, if you think about Beyonce, would we ever imagine that the amazing Beyonce would struggle with stage fright or nerves before performing to a packed stadium of thousands of people? Well, she probably does. And what does she do about it? She has an alter ego. She has a shinier version of herself. And that shinier version is called Sasha Fierce. So I know it might seem trivial to start thinking about who would your super you be, but it's so important to get that song playing in your head, whether it's Beautiful Day for Maria, and start thinking, who is that best version of me? If you think of yourself now, when you liked yourself the best, when you felt 10 feet tall, that's your Sasha Fierce, and that Sasha Fierce needs to turn up to be the presenter on the day. Back to the fight song. I don't know if any more are coming in at this point in time. Start playing it in your head. Start identifying who's that inner critic that's holding me back and who is that inner super you that you can bring to your presentation or to your challenge going forward. Life is really about becoming a better version of yourself. And that also requires finding your voice. We can have great periods of confidence in our life and then something knocks our confidence. Life will, unfortunately, deal all sorts of curveballs, personal and professional. I'm sure many of you have had them already. And our confidence can be really knocked. And sometimes we feel that we'll never be able to speak up again. We'll never be able to hold our head up again. But you will. Things will pass and things will get better. But if it comes to speaking out about something or calling something out, it's really important that you learn to do that and not be filled with regret or fear that you didn't raise it. So how do you do that? Well, how to find your voice in difficult situations. You would say to yourself, what would a stronger, more confident, what would that Sasha Fierce version of myself do in this situation? What would a stronger, more confident, and even better version of myself do in this situation? And try to channel that person. Take your fear, take your emotions out of it. Plan what you're going to say, plan how you're going to do it. So when I say take the emotion out of it, don't be angry, don't have the red mist there, don't be apologizing for breathing. Own your words, practice them coming out of your mouth. Maybe run them past somebody else. First of all, do I sound too angry? Does this sound too aggressive? Do you even care when I say this? So really important that we think about what we're going to say. And that's, I suppose, where we come to our speaker presence. So if you're hosting a team meeting, perhaps at work, and you're feeling a little bit like this person, reclaim that super inner you and think about what you're selling to your audience. That's not a very good image of a salesman. That's a very old-fashioned one. But the thing is, we're selling all the time. I'm selling here today to sell ideas to you. You will be encouraging people at that team meeting to maybe listen to a team brief, maybe understand a new project that's starting, how it's going to work. And you want people's buy-in and you want people to come on board. How do you do that? You always think about the particular audience in front of you. And we talk about the fled goals. How do you want your audience to feel? So always focus on the audience, not on you and your performance. You're the shinier version of you. Now, what gift can you give that audience? How do you want them to feel after your presentation? What do you want them to learn? And what do you want them to do? Most of us get bogged down in the learning and we throw everything but the kitchen sink at our audience, and we write loads and loads and loads of notes on the computer, and we've never actually said them out loud. We really can only remember 3 messages. So really hone your messages, say them out loud, practice in the mirror, practice recording yourself on your phone. We don't like the way we look and we sound, but actually that is the way we look and we sound. So we have to get used to it. So don't just think all about the learning, think about the stories, the feeling, the emotions, think about the call to action at the end. And remember, when you are sitting in front of people, your body language is so super important to get right, because your audience will, I'm afraid, be judging you, even though I've just said they want you to do well. They're subconsciously hoping that you'll smile at them and be warm and friendly and approachable. So that's what I mean by judging. They're like, they don't want to see somebody come on the stage that looks like this. That person could be feeling nervous and apprehensive, but actually the body language is just giving out off very negative vibes. So your warmth is one thing you'll be judged on. Yes, your competence too. But that comes after the warmth. If you can win people over with your warmth first and your friendliness and your nice manner with people, they're much more likely to give you the benefit of the doubt over the competence. According to Harvard, the way to influence is to begin with warmth. It facilitates trust, communication, and the absorption of ideas. So build that foundation of trust first. Own your space. Make eye contact. Before people will decide what they think of your message, they're deciding what do they think of you. And if you feel your body language needs a little bit of work, there's a great TED Talk by Amy Cuddy online that I would urge you to look at. Your body language shapes who you are. So by using more powerful and positive body language, so not crossing your arms or putting your hands in your pocket, making sure that you're making good eye contact, even in a hybrid situation, then you will behave in a more confident way. You need to slow down in your pace. You need to have expression in your face, and you need to have engagement. So are you talking to a camera? Are you talking to human beings? Really important that everything is switched on, not just your mouth. Also, what do you need to do? Do you need to dial up in your presentations on your authority? Lots of people think when we start a new job, I must be very serious and very formal because now I'm working in the world of business, you know. Or do you need to be more approachable? By approachable, I don't mean like, hi, sorry, yes, hi. No, we need to maybe, assess our own presenting speaker presence and decide which one we need to dial up on. So ultimately, everyone, I want you to be yourself with more skill. So that's really where I'm going to leave it today. Always think about your audience. Always start with why. Simon Sinek there, another great TED Talk, with every presentation you give. Why am I giving this? Why? What's in it for the audience? So lead and the others will definitely follow. A little structure that I might leave you with today is the SARA structure, S-A-R-A. If you need to plan a meeting, if you need to plan for a job interview, if you need to plan for a keynote, this is a very useful structure, and I'll send this on and you can have this afterwards. This, or you might want to take a photograph on your phone. when it comes to communication, set the scene for people. Explain the context at the beginning. That's your S. The A is your approach. How can you help in this situation? What's your approach to this particular subject? Very, very important. The R, state the benefits or the expected results of what you're doing. That's the stories, that's the examples, that's the statistics that really show the evidence. And the very final one, what can your audience do at the end? So conclude always with a call to action or a takeaway. Set the scene, what's your approach, what are the results, and what's the takeaway? And really think about your open body language. I'm going to whiz on a little bit because we're nearly at the end of the session. And I know there's a little slide that we need to show because time is marching on. It is 11:45. It's been lovely to talk to you today. Thank you for being here. There's a little question here from Magnus. How long to maintain eye contact when addressing a group of 4 or more? Well, that's a very good question, Magnus, because nobody likes when people are really staring, do they? So, you know, it is important to maybe look down at your notes, back up again, move around the room a little bit. A journalist will always, in an interview, really stare at someone and not make those nice encouraging noises in a conversation. So they tend to go. And I know that people find that very difficult. If you're the person being stared at, look to the person's ear instead. If their facial expression is annoying you, but you want to still maintain eye contact, glance at their ear. So nobody feels unloved, of course. You don't want anybody to feel unloved, but it's sharing the love. Sharing the love around the room, because it can, yes, eye contact can be a really difficult thing. Thank you so much for being here today. Shauna and Maria, are you still here? You want to be giving a mention to, we're on our last day today of Future Skills Week, but there's still plenty more to come. I can see you've got the fabulous David Mead up next.
We do indeed.